That device that your kids have in your hands, yeah, when I was mentoring in the high school for 10 years, I used to watch a lot of other mentors who would come in all their resources and they would debate with the kids about things. And I said, the thing you got to remember as a mentor is what they really need to know is what you've actually lived through. Why? Well, because if it's just information, they've got more information in the palm of their hand than your PhD provided you. You got to let that settle in for a minute. They have more information in the palm of their hand than your PhD provided you. And that's part of what I want to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. You're going to want to be a part of this one, and you might want to download this one, save it, and send it to somebody else. I'm just saying it's going to tickle your brain a little bit. It's been messing with mine pretty hard.
Master the story power method to captivate your audience, improve workplace culture, and 10x your fundraising.
Scan the QR code to book your first coaching call or visit storypowercoach.com. Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at storypoweracademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm Jay Lauren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast. I have children in their 20s. I have grandchildren from 1 year all the way up. College, one of them goes off to college this week. It's pretty fascinating, though, to watch that evolution. Let me back up, though, from before our kids were even old enough to walk and talk, all of them. Some of them were. My wife and I started in 1996 working with young people, not church youth group, in a different environment, in an environment where we had, I think, our opening night in Covington Middle School in Austin, Texas, 790 kids that showed up. At that time, we were just regular staff people. And I remember after several months of working this program every Saturday night from 7 to 11 p.m., these young people would come in and they would watch us do our thing, and we'd watch them do their thing. We'd watch them, in the cafeteria, in the gym, playing with the inflatables, dancing on the dance floor. It was all over the board. They had a blast. But I remember one particular time that a young lady came in. She was probably 12, maybe 14 years old, because the program was only for 8 to 14-year-olds. So maybe she was 14, maybe she was a little older and she was sneaking in because she was petite. But she had only one button buttoned on her shirt. One button, right there, right in the middle. And that was it. And I said, young lady, would you please button the rest of your shirt? Your blouse is going to fall open. And her response to me was to throw her hands on her hips and very sassily look at me. At the time, I would have been about not quite 30 years old. And she looked at me and she said, "Listen, you old F, I've probably had more sex in the last month than you've had in your entire lifetime. So don't go getting all pretentious on me." From whence cometh such arrogance, blather, and where did you get that vocabulary, pretentious at 14 years old? Good grief. Let me remind you, this was 1996. We worked with that program until 2009. And we watched a program that was for 8 to 14-year-olds narrow because we began to have physical fights, threats of gang violence, incredible amounts of what we thought was outside the realm of our 14-year-olds, mature behavior. 15, 16, 17-year-olds, they're beginning to be young adults, right? But we're beginning to see that creep down to the 10, 12-year-olds where they believed that they could buck up to authority. They could bow up to authority. And one of the changes was that evolution of, well, these things, these digital devices that give them access to information and knowledge. And not only that, but also, we've talked for decades about peer pressure, about how the peer pressure of one class of kids or one group of kids or one gang of kids or one, I don't know, maybe it's the jocks, maybe it's the nerds, maybe it's the computer team or the history geeks or the chess team. All of them kind of have their own way of thinking about life, and they have their own little cliques. And within their cliques, they have a way of communicating and a way of evaluating and a way of prioritizing what's important to them, what's important to you, and do you fit in or do you don't? I don't think I put it on the table today. I looked at it. I should have. Don't Burn This Country is a book by a guy by the name of Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin was a political commentator, had his own podcast, was out there for a while, and was part of a LGBT community as a gay man with a child. He and his husband had been involved in politics and social commentary for a long time. And Dave Rubin said he attended 2 different national conventions, the Republican National Convention and the Democrat National Convention. And he said, personally, I have very financial, fiscal, conservative views. Socially, I have very libertarian views. And then I have my own personal lifestyle. And those 3, they work for me in harmony, not necessarily in unison. If you know anything about music, you understand the drastic difference between those. Harmony and unison. They're not on exactly the same note, but they're at least in sync in some way. That revelation for him was that at the Republican convention, and I'm not speaking specifically about Republicans as much as I'm talking about this clique division thing that I'm going to dig into just a little bit more here about our young people and the future of our nation. Dave said at one of those conventions he felt very invited, very welcome. People had deep conversations with him. They asked him questions. They were compassionate. They felt like they were genuinely concerned about his well-being and the future of his world. The other group, on the other hand, ostracized, criticized, threw him out of meetings, committee meetings, and teams. He didn't have a chance to participate. He couldn't be one of the crowd because he had 1 or 2 ideas that those just don't quite line up. Now, I may have already accidentally let the cat out of the bag, but the group, and this is according to him, go look him up and ask. Search him out on YouTube. Dave Rubin said one of the things that convinced me to abandon that party on the left was the way that they treated me when I was with them face to face. I wasn't one of them because I didn't walk 100% lockstep with them. I didn't agree with everything they said, and so they practically threw me out. The other side, on the other hand, said, hey, we don't agree with all of that, but on the things that we agree, let's go. Let's go together. Let's go. And see, I've watched this over the last 35 years from the kids in the school system, the kids that I worked with when we ran that youth program from 96 to 2009, from 2012 till 2000, from 2012 to 2022 when I mentored in a public high school with 2,500 students. I've watched the evolution of young people. I've watched my own children and now my grandchildren. I have grandchildren that if you take their phone away from them, you have a war on your hands. Kicking, screaming, fits. They're not old enough to read yet. They're just watching the videos. They're just looking at the videos. But see, what happens is they get these little classifications. Well, you're that kind of person, or you're that kind of person, or you think like this. And it's one thing to say, we're cliques. We do things together. We like to hunt. We like to fish. I love hunting growing up. I haven't had a whole lot of access as an adult. It's a nostalgic thing that I would love to do more of. But I have friends that are like, hey, we're going to kill some hogs. You want to go? And I'm like, well, I got meetings and clients, and I wish I could. I would love to go shoot some hogs, but I can't go. Those friends don't look at me and go, you're an anti-hog hunter. They don't think like that. There's an invitation, and you either take them up on it or you don't, and it ain't no big deal. But there are other friends who are like, we want you to do this with us. And if you don't do that with them then, you're off the list. You will never be invited again. You either play their game their way on their timeline or you're out. That's hard enough to navigate as a grown man. I'm a grown man. I am an old man. Well, some people would say I'm an old man. But put that kind of pressure on a 5, 6, 7, 10-year-old. Put that kind of pressure of saying you fit in, you do what we ask you to do, you do what we tell you to do, when we tell you to do it, or you're out, we'll never talk to you again. Put that on a kid in middle school, elementary school. You don't even have to be face-to-face with them at the lunch table. You don't even have to be with them in the gym class or on the playground or on the band or on the football field. You don't have to be around them at all, because you can do it right here. Anybody ever seen the movie Mean Girls? Anybody seen those kind of things where this little narrative starts in a social media feed? Well, I heard so-and-so did. Well, I also heard they, and this rumor mill gets out of control. It's like the game of telephone, right? One person says it here, and then by the time it gets back to where it started, it's not even the same kind of message. That kind of stuff happens at lightning pace on social media. And we like to think, well, if we could just curb the behavior of our young people, then that would change. Let me share a little something with you that you may not know. There's a hidden architecture built into short-form video that specifically, precisely, but with precision you couldn't imagine. Little aside, there was a movie, I think it was one of those after-school specials, but kind of made for more grown-ups, a couple of years ago. And it talked about, the whole theme of the movie was about the power of the rumor mill, the power of gossip when it's instigated. And there was a kid who was having a really hard time, is kind of being left out as a nerd. Even the nerds wouldn't spend too much time with him. He was kind of a Sheldon kid, just way too intelligent for his age. And there was a really popular girl who was beautiful and everybody loved her, but she was kind of set aside as well for other reasons because she was a little goth and she dressed a little funny, and everybody knew who she was, but not that academically smart. And at one point she went to the smart kid and she's like, I want you to help me with this. He's like, you want me to help you? What's in it for me? Or you're just going to laugh at me with your friends next week. I mean, why would I do that? That doesn't make any sense for me. And so they made a deal that she would start a rumor about how good he was in bed if he would help with her homework. And it only took a couple of weeks before he was one of the most popular kids on campus, because the rumor, not the truth, not the facts, just the rumor, put him in a category that people in that school, people he wanted to be popular with, saw him as popular. Now, what if you could do that, not over a couple of weeks or a semester or a school year? What if you could do that with 10 or 15,000 people in a matter of minutes? You ever watch someone go back and do, I do, for my own research and my own business, I go back to the reels that I posted and I specifically look to see how much each one got, how much traffic, how many views, how many likes, how many shares, how much engagement. Do people care that what I said mattered? I will do the same thing when I cut the shorts out of this video and load those shorts into social media. I'll go back and look, was that one as popular as others? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? What can I do better? Here's what I don't do. I don't base the value of my own life on the number at the bottom of the page. I don't look at myself and think I should just end it all because I didn't get enough likes. The people that I want to like me don't like me. See, that's exactly what's happening. And you may not believe it, but these short form video reels, they're crafted with the combination of AI and extremely intelligent humans working together to ensure one thing. Now, did they have a nefarious intention up front? I can't say. It seems like the result has been, wow. But I can tell you this. Their intent, their number one primary intent, is to keep your eyes staring at their tool. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, doesn't matter what tool it is. All of them benefit when you stare at it longer. That's why they don't like links in your post that cause people to leave the page. And that doesn't matter if it's YouTube or it's Facebook or it's TikTok or it's Instagram. If you put a link in the video or in the page, in the post, in the text that leads someone to go, oh, click, and they leave the platform, they will push you down in the algorithm to make sure that you don't do that. Why? Because they want people not just to stay on your video till it's over, they want people to stay in the platform. Because that's where they get money from sponsors and advertisers, is when people stay in the platform. So some little things that they manipulate within what we call the algorithm intentionally. Here's 4 of them. Predictive AI algorithms analyze the watch time down to the millisecond. If you've ever seen the stats on a video or reel that you've posted, you'll notice that on some platforms, 3 seconds is all it takes to call it a watch. 3 seconds out of 30 minutes? They watch for 3 seconds? I didn't get any message across in 3 seconds. It wasn't the intention. But they measure that watch time down to the millisecond. How long did your eyeball stay on it? Oh, and by the way, they use the camera on the front of the phone to make sure that they know how long you've been looking. Not just that you have it on. In fact, one of the newest things that I've noticed is if I set a reel on, and sometimes I do it just to mess with the algorithm, I'll start watching a reel, and if it's 4 or 5 minutes long, I'll lay the phone down and walk away from it and just let it play through. Generally speaking, that reel just starts over at the end of the 4 or 5 minutes and starts playing the same thing again, and a new set of ads. Sometimes the same ads will run in the reel again. Sometimes a new ad will run in the reel. Usually after the second time it plays through, though, if my face is not in front of the phone, it stops. How does it know? How does it know if I'm looking or I'm not? Well, because it's using the eyesight camera for that purpose. You might not know, but sometimes those devices, the app together with the device, together with the campaign, are not just looking to see if someone is watching, but they're looking to see who. There have been reports, there have been videos of people with their kids watching a video and they hear something inappropriate and they're like, what are you watching? And the minute the adult's face comes into sight of the eyesight camera on the device, the video changes back to something they expected their kid to be watching, not what was being shown to them. Predictive AI algorithms analyze at watch time down to the millisecond. Number 2, dopamine spikes. The system mixes mediocre content with highly engaging video. You ever been scrolling through and you go through that scroll and you see cool video, junk, 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 junk. Why is that even in my feed? I don't watch that kind of stuff. I don't know why that's there. Scroll, scroll, cool. And so there's a pause because there's a blend of the things that you find fascinating. And you know what's fascinating is that the AI is asking you, what do you find fascinating? And you may not know this, but it's also intentionally already loading the next 5 videos based on the ones you paused on and watched longer. It's not just serving up content that's there. It's specifically serving up content to get you to behave in a certain way. What is that certain way? Well, that dopamine spike comes with those mixes of good and bad, and next you have the intermittent rewards. You scroll because the next video might be amazing. Maybe you've seen The Incredibles. When Mr. Incredible gets out of his car and he's having a bad day and he slams the door and nearly turns the car over and he's ready to just destroy the car, and he looks down and there's a little kid sitting on the 3-wheeler and he's like, what are you waiting for? He's like, I don't know, something amazing. Yeah, that's all of social media. They're pausing you just a little bit, slowing you down just a little bit with the mediocre stuff that maybe even ruffles your feathers or makes you a little bit upset, so that they can bring something to you that's amazing, because right after that, they're going to hit you with an ad. If you think I'm crazy on that, go watch Chase Hughes when he talks about how this manipulation of emotion up and down is always the signal that a sell is about to come. Ambition drain. This is a constant baseline supply of dopamine. So here's what happens. When you get a rush, a rush, a rush, a rush, a rush. Why is that my feet? Why is that my feet? Why is that my feet? What happens is you have this suspended anticipation, this almost super subconsciously paused desire to find the next amazing thing. I don't know about you, it's been a while because of my knees and my hips that I went for a long run. I used to run 3 miles a day every day. I always hated going for a run, but I always felt phenomenal when I got back. After I would jump in the pool, bring my body temperature back down, because I turn beet red when I run because I get really hot. And I always felt like, man, that was awesome. I'm going to do this again tomorrow. And then by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, every part of my body was sore, and I was like, why do I even do this? But the runner's high is that dopamine rush, and it floods the entire body. Some people get it from a game of golf. Some people get it from a nice dinner. Some people get it from a date. Some people get it. You can get it in all kinds of places. But see, what happens is when you get it from this doom scroll that's created to keep you looking, to keep you looking, to keep you looking, to keep you looking, for no other reason but to keep you looking, because that's how they make money, is to sell advertising because you're looking. They're feeding you content that mimics that runner's high. It makes you feel like something amazing is about to come, and I'll pay the price. I'll sit here for hours scrolling through. See, even the infinite scroll is part of that manipulation. It's called the elimination of friction. You don't have to pick up the next book, turn the next page, wonder where you were, lose your focus and go back. No, it's not like that. All you got to do is a little swipe up. That little swipe up takes you to the next thing, and it might be amazing. You might get a dopamine rush out of it. You might get a ba-ding. Somebody has sent you a message. Somebody loves that you're watching so-and-so. You hearted their thing, and now they're hearting your things. What we forget is embedded in all of that are these things called microsignals. In fact, embedded in all of that, suppression of the attention span, that control of the dopamine rush, that infinite scroll that takes away the friction or the complication of getting you to the next message, is buried modern messaging. See, I've got some interesting books on the table here. This particular one, Cal Thomas. I've met Cal Thomas. I rode with him in the car for almost 3.5 hours from Dallas to San Antonio when he was working with a newspaper startup that I helped with in 1998. This particular book was written in 2020. But in 1998, we had some interesting discussions about the future of America. This book is titled America's Expiration Date. He asks a really simple question on the back. Is it possible that America could crumble and our democracy fail? 6 years ago, in the front cover, he says, individuals may come to different conclusions, but there seems to be a common view, the deep-seated feeling that we need to improve our country. Our culture is increasingly immoral. The family structure is threatened from all sides, and our government programs consistently overreach, creating massive debt. Cal Thomas, Dallas Morning News, commentator, editorialist, television host. He's been watching this for a while. And he's already saying there's some issues here. This next one, this is The Secret Weapon. Again, another friend of mine, personal friend of mine. We used to go to church together, hung out together, Kevin Freeman. The Secret Weapon is actually about how money in the marketplace can change the future of our nation. Who has the money? Where is it moving around? What form is it in? Is it digital currency? Is it precious stones? Is it precious metals? And the way that other nations manipulate our currency is by itself a weapon. But see, one of the most powerful weapons is that invisible conversation, where we begin to change things in the dialogue. We call it the semantic redefinition. Let me give you just a couple of these. Voluntary exchange. There's something in the languaging in many of the amazing reels that pop up, the shorts, the videos, where the messaging is a little bit subversive. It's a little bit hidden. It's a little subtle, subliminal maybe. But they take a word like voluntary exchange, which is a very hierarchical aspect of free market capitalism. It's what's lifted more people out of poverty than any other thing on earth. Free market capitalism, the ability, the right, the privilege to build what you want to build, to take your ideas from idea to profit. And along the way, to benefit other people by providing jobs, providing solutions to a problem. But see, when you can take that concept, that voluntary exchange, and reframe it as systemic exploitation or coercion, when you can get young people to repeat that because that's what they hear. Well, so-and-so made such and such, and they were really coercing these people, or they've taken away. See, there's some phrases like take over the means of production. Those phrases go back several hundred years, take over the means of production. And when you take over the means of production, what you mean is you're taking the power, taking the money, taking the influence, taking the ability to drive societal change away from those who have innovated and created and entrepreneurially built something from nothing. You're taking it from them and you're giving control and wealth, presumably, to the people. Here's what happens in that transaction. If I said to my grandson, who's 18 months old, hey, here's a new Cadillac Escalade, have fun. I've invested in this, I've taken time to earn money to buy this, and I'm giving it to you. The first reaction might be, why? At 18 months old, I don't even know that he can say why. He can say mom and dad pretty good. Well, what if I gave that to the 15-year-old? He'd be like, dude, everybody's gonna think I'm cool. As soon as I get my driver's license next year, I'll be driving this Escalade everywhere. But would he be responsible enough to keep it clean, keep it well maintained, keep insurance on it, financial responsibility? Probably not so much, not without a little help at least, because he doesn't know what it takes to keep something of that value moving forward. See, when you take the means of production from those who have crafted, created, and built this thing and hand it to those who have just been working in the factory, they have a limited scope of the ability to understand what it takes to run it. That's not a criticism, it's a reality. Now, over time, they could learn to run it. And we get back to that old phrase, what if we train them all to do what we do and they start another business and become competitors? So much better than not training them, having them hang out here, not knowing what to do. But see, there's this dichotomy in the languaging, where we have young people today who are thoroughly convinced that we need to take over the means of production. They really don't even know what it means. If you ask them about socialism or communism or these other forms of marketplace, they don't know. All they know is they saw it here, they heard it here, it's been repeated here again and 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 again, and their emotional rise and fall has allowed them to go from to amazing, and then that idea is sold in there. Those things that you buy, you can listen to Chase Hughes in his interview with Stephen from Diary of a CEO, and he says of himself, he said, I am, Chase Hughes, I am the foremost authority on brainwashing. And I can tell you I have found myself a victim to this social media rise and fall of emotion. I found myself buying stuff online that I have absolutely no need for. My wife criticizes me. She's like, why are you doing this? Why do you fall for this? And he said, I realized after I had a hoard of this stuff that I bought it because of the emotional rise and fall. I bought it because I was kind of pushed that way. And if I, as the leading expert on manipulation and brainwashing in the world, can be a victim to that, what about your 12-year-old? Look, there's so much out there today that threatens the family. It threatens the strength of our society, the forward movement of our culture. And it's not just a different form of social construct. It's not just a different form of financial aspects. It's not just the cultural, religious things that we hold on to that have made America what it is for over 250 years. There's a reason very few other societies have lasted this long. And if you don't know what those are, you're going to have a really hard time combating them. I'm going to challenge you, though, get in touch with your own core values. Figure out what it is about your life that has made you as successful as you are. Ask yourself if these other worldviews only work in the laboratory, they only work in the college grounds. They don't really work in the real world. And as you ask that question, ask yourself, what do you want to leave for your children and grandchildren? What kind of world are you going to leave behind? These conversations must be had. But in order for you to have those conversations, you've got to be equipped. Narrative Warriors is a cohesive program. It starts with story power, then works on the attitude hack, which is your brand and culture, and then lead the narrative. What is the message that you personally are responsible for? It may be different than mine. But through this process, I will equip you to identify not only your narrative, but the ones that you're competing against, and empower you to confront them. There's a link in the description below. I want you to take a look at that. I want you to consider. You can jump into the 6 weeks course. We're only days away from the next cohort for the story power method, 6 weeks. Then 6 weeks of attitude hack, then 6 weeks to lead the narrative. You can sign up for the whole thing at a major discount. The price is on there. I'm pushing you, though. I'm challenging you. If you've been watching Leading Leaders podcast for any period of time, you know I don't take this stuff lightly. But you also know I can't do it by myself. I mean, Joe Rogan has 20 million followers. I don't have anywhere near that. But Joe Rogan's 20 million isn't even 10% of America. Think through that for a minute. Even if he had the perfect message, the perfect tactics, he can't do it himself. Oh, and by the way, there's no other news agency out there that has the following that Joe Rogan has. We're going to have to do this together, but you need to get equipped. If you don't deliver the message of what you've actually lived through to your children and grandchildren, ask yourself, what message will they get instead? I'm J. Lauren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Think storytelling's just for bedtime? Nah, it's the secret sauce for business magic. Stuck in a rut with bland pitches and yawning clients? Enter Boost Your Business with Story Power. 6 weeks of epic storytelling training. It's like leveling up in a video game but for your career. Master the art of narrative and watch connections blossom like a viral TikTok. Simple, impactful, and game-changing. Ready to transform your biz vibes? Dive in now and make storytelling your superpower.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at